Welcome back to the channel. Nikki2Jobs here. Today we're going to go over some basic guidelines for how to build a resume for any industry or profession. Starting with personal information. You want to include your name, your city and state. Doesn't have to be your full address, but a general idea of where you're living is important. A phone number and your email. When considering what experience to include, you want to make sure that you're focusing on your most recent and relevant positions for the job you're trying to interview for. Double check to make sure that the dates you're listing for your past positions are accurate. That is something that will be checked later on in the interview process, so it's better to make sure they're accurate from the start. You definitely want to include a skills section, but make sure it doesn't appear larger on the paper than any of your past experiences. Include your education, usually underneath your experience. An ideal resume length is going to be 1 page, but if you need to fit it in 2 pages, that's okay. Just try not to go past 2 pages. When considering what to write for each position that you worked in, don't just focus on what you've done, but how it's impacted your company or your team. A good basic formula to follow is I did X with Y, which resulted in Z. This is similar to how you would present your experience while answering an interview question. It will not just highlight what you've done, but it will show the measurable impact that you had in your position. If you have the time, try to tailor your experience accurately to the position that you're applying for, because it'll make it more relevant. Links that are good to include in your resume are going to be LinkedIn or another professional profile, portfolios or showcase work, relevant articles that you've written, or patents that you have. Things to exclude from your resume are going to be your year of graduation. This really doesn't matter as long as you've graduated, and can unintentionally cause bias. Irrelevant experience from early on in your career. If you worked a position that has nothing to do with the one that you're applying for, it probably doesn't need to be on your resume and is only going to take up valuable space. You don't need to include a photo of yourself on your resume. It's going to take up valuable space that's meant to highlight your past experiences. Non-professional areas of interest. This is something that you can include if you're early on in your career and feel like you don't have a lot to include on your resume. That being said, as you're building your career, what needs to take precedent is your actual experience and how it relates to the position that you're applying for. Lastly, overcomplicated formats or templates. Some formats may not open under certain software programs, so if you have a resume that isn't loading properly, it inherently is going to misrepresent your experience and make it more difficult for your future employer to actually see what you've done. The safest thing to do is to not include images or complicated PDF formatting. If you do feel like you need to make your experience catch the eye a little better, what you can do is do selective underlining or bolding your different titles, companies, and dates that you work there. These are things that can change the contrast of your resume to the eye to draw it to specific things. However, if you're bolding a word here or there, it's going to look like you're trying to force these specific words to be looked at versus just it being a formatting thing. These are simple tips. It's not a lot. However, building a resume doesn't have to be complicated. If you follow these guidelines, you're likely going to have a solid resume that is going to accurately represent your experience and why you would be a good match for the job you're applying for. Thank you for watching. If you did find this helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you for the next one.